Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I remember doing a story a while back about a guy who had a pickup truck parked in his driveway. And the homeowners association said, dude, you got to move that truck out of sight. It offends our sensibilities because it's in such bad condition. And of course, rough condition on the body in an old vehicle can be considered patina by those who appreciate it, but it's considered to be just, grunge in the eyes of those who don't like it. And so the homeowner association made a big stink about that, saying you've got to put that in your garage. And the guy said, well, it wouldn't fit. So that's where that fight broke out. Now, here's a newer one. And this one's even a little more strange. Out of Florida, WPLG, local10.com, it's a TV station a good friend of mine used to work at. Weston Hills Country Club wants homeowners' $100,000 pickup truck out of sight. This vehicle is brand new. It cost $100,000. And they said, oh, you can't leave trucks parked in the driveway according to the rules. And of course, you're allowed to leave a car parked in the driveway. And the question is, what is really the distinction between a car and a truck? I understand there is a distinction. But my point is that if you've got a brand new car in your driveway, and I've got a brand new truck, and my truck is simply a pickup truck. By the way, many people drive pickup trucks nowadays as their daily driver. So it's not a work truck, it's not a cube van, it's not, something with a big old logo painted on the side of it. It's a brand new truck. And they've said, no, you can't park that in your driveway. So this is out of Weston, Florida. A Weston Hills Country Club homeowner has been put on notice and told to park his new $100,000 pickup truck in his garage out of sight, or they're going to fine him. That homeowner is gearing up for a fight, claiming the rules are outdated and ridiculous. Local 10 investigative reporter asked the man, how long did you wait to get this vehicle? And he said, I ordered it over a year ago, and the truck was just delivered a few weeks ago. He said, I felt like a little kid waiting for it. The first one I saw was mine. So his truck is the first of its kind in that area. It's an all-electric pickup Rivian. It looks like nothing else on the road and can go 315 miles on a charge. I've seen them in traffic, and they're unusual looking. I'll admit, I'm not crazy about some of the styling choices they made, but I understand it's a cool vehicle. So some Rivians can actually turn like a tank and go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. The truck drives itself on the highway, and there are 11 cameras on board in case you're counting. In the old days, we counted cup holders. Now we count cameras. It's become an attraction in the neighborhood. The man said that some neighbors are taking pictures of it. They say, beautiful vehicle, can I see it? It's the only comments I've gotten. So he gets positive comments. Everybody seems to like the truck. They recognize it's unique. They come up and they look at it. So less than 2 weeks after taking delivery, he received a notice from property management that the truck can't be parked in his driveway overnight. So he can pull it out during the day. He can park it in the driveway during the day. But overnight, for whatever reason, you got to pull it in the garage and close the door. We can't be seeing trucks at night. Now, the country club has strict rules regarding trucks, trailers, RVs, and commercial vehicles set by the developer back in the 1980s. Now, I understand some of those because I've driven down a street before where somebody's got some monstrosity of an RV in their driveway. And again, I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. It depends on the rules. But all I'm saying is compare the gigantic RV with a truck that's brand new and clean. Okay? And so presumably they were trying to make it to where this country club community looked like up to a certain standard. They don't want junk. They don't want cars up on blocks. They, And by the way, when you buy into that community, one of the reasons you're paying a premium for it is that the community looks nice and that they've managed to do these things. I can find right now, I can think of where one is. I know somebody who got one of those big RVs, took it out a few times, apparently didn't like it. They parked it alongside their driveway, and then they put covers over the tires. The wheels are all chalked, and that thing hasn't moved in 5 or 6 years. And I think it's sinking into the ground. I think 100,000 years from now, it will have made its way to the center of the earth, okay? So that RV, for all practical purposes, is now just another structure on that property. I don't care that it's got wheels underneath it. It's just there. And so I can understand them saying we don't want commercial vehicles parked. So some guy who works for a plumbing company brings the truck home. It's got, advertising on the side. I can see that. But again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, and it doesn't bother me if my neighbor brings home his truck with that on it. But I'm just simply saying I can see the distinction. That's all. The country club has strict rules for trucks, trailers, RVs, and commercial vehicles. And so if you think about that group of things there, trucks, trailers, RVs, commercial vehicles, you can see how trucks actually doesn't necessarily fit in if we're going to lump in passenger trucks. So they want his truck put away out of sight at night. Now, he's lived there for 27 years. 27 years. And he called property management to discuss the issue. He said, we will wind up getting fines and penalties until we remove it. They can even lien the house, that is, if they don't pay. And he said we could even lose our house over this. So asked by the reporter, did the rule ever cross your mind when you ordered the truck? He says, I never thought there'd be a rule like that. There are trucks all over the place. We don't have room in our garage to put it in there. So this truck will not fit in his garage. And he's got it. So he says the rules need to change with the times. These were written in the 1980s by the developer, and it said no trucks, no vans. Since then, trucks have become a popular vehicle for personal use. Some people in my audience might not understand that because they didn't see it happen. But when I was in high school and junior high, very few people drove pickup trucks as a daily driver. And I remember when I was a senior in high school, a friend of mine got a pickup truck. And I remember we're all like, whoa, dude, were you a cowboy? What's going on there? It was just unusual. And the percentage of the fleet on the road that are pickup trucks and then, of course, SUVs and so on has expanded over the years. But when this rule was passed in the 1980s, trucks were not that common as a person's daily driver. But, of course, if it's a rule, rules can be changed. And there is a process for changing rules. The tricky part is how do you get the rules to change? You got to go and get all the people who are members of that association to agree that, yes, we're going to allow pickup trucks to be parked overnight. And you know what's going to happen. People are going to say, yeah, but we allow that. Next thing you know, some guy's got the vehicle off the opening credits of the Beverly Hillbillies parked in his front yard for overnight. We can't allow that. And so they'd have to talk about how would they define a truck in such a way that it would allow the personal passenger vehicles to be used, but not the commercial ones and so on. Minivans were just being invented when they wrote these rules, and there are now minivans all over the place. It may hurt our home values as these new vehicles come out. As they evolve and come out, we will discourage people from buying in our community. So, meanwhile, the president of the association said that he left a voicemail for the reporter who called him and said, can you get a comment on this? He said, you can have a truck, but he has to put it in the garage. It cannot be sitting outside the house all day long. If the gentleman would have read the documents when he bought the house, he would have seen that, and there's a possibility that we would not have bought the truck. And of course, the man said he's lived there 27 years. He might have read that 27 years ago. That's not the kind of rule that sticks in your mind for 27 years. But I'm speculating there. Now, they tried calling this guy for a follow-up, but he didn't respond. Meanwhile, the man has an attorney and says there are judges that have ruled that these vehicles are regular vehicles. They are not inherently a commercial vehicle just because it is a pickup truck. If it doesn't have commercial markings or anything else like that, it's a regular vehicle. And so that's an attorney speaking. And now he's poking at the commercial vehicle. But you'll notice that the original statement here simply says strict rules for trucks, trailers, RVs, and commercial vehicles. Well, by saying commercial vehicles at the end of that list, they are not talking about trucks, trailers, and RVs that are commercial vehicles, because then they wouldn't need to say that distinction at the end. So they're talking about trucks that are not commercial vehicles are also kept out. So we'll see what's going to happen. But meanwhile, there was another pickup truck owner who sued his association in a nearby town, and he won. And the association had to pay $40,000 for his attorney fees. Now, that was back in 2001, so that goes a little ways back. And a Broward County judge wrote, personal use pickup trucks do not carry the negative implication they might have 25 years ago. In no way could parking these vehicles interfere with the quiet enjoyment or the property value of the condominium residents. So the reporter asked the homeowner here, is there anything that's going to make you get rid of that vehicle? He said, no, we're ready to take it. It is just wrong. So it looks like he's about to say we're ready to take it all the way. But he just said, no, it's just wrong. So here's the thing. I know people, every time we talk about homeowners associations, I get a bunch of different responses, one of which is, why would anybody buy into one? Well, I know people who like the idea that there is a place with rules that are enforced and they don't have to worry about the person next door getting a 40-foot RV or a boat that they decided they don't like anymore and just beaching it next to their driveway and covering it in tarps that are held down with cinder blocks. And I know people who like that. I know people who live in condos and they go, well, I like the idea that somebody else does the maintenance. They shovel the snow, they do the grass. I don't even think about it. I cut a check once a month, but they take care of it. So there's benefits to living in these places. But you got to read the rules. And in most states that I'm familiar with, the rules are incorporated into the documents that describe your property, the actual deed documents, the title, the property title. It'll actually say, no all men buy these presents that, the typical legalese gibberish. And, all this legalese stuff. And someplace in there it says, and incorporated herein are the bylaws of the Weston Hills Country Club, Homeowners Association. And these rules are part of this document. So that's how important they are. Those rules got recorded at the county. And so you got to read those and understand what they are. But I do agree that simply lumping all pickup trucks into a category separate from all personal vehicles, think about a small pickup truck, right? A Ford Ranger, just a Ford Ranger, right? And somebody instead also gets a big old H2 SUV, big old H2, big old SUV. It's like 3 miles to a gallon with a tailwind. And that thing. Now, which of those is more, obvious to the eye as you scan across something you're looking for vehicles? Which one's you're going to spot first? Well, you could probably put the Ranger inside the H2. But the H2 is okay because it's an SUV. And SUVs, by the way, weren't excluded at the time because I don't think the category existed yet. So it says trucks, trailers, RVs, and commercial vehicles. So if you have a non-commercial H2, boom, there you go. There you go. Big old monstrosity in your driveway. I just pick on them because General Motors bought the rights to use Hummer and to sell Hummers. The H1 was cool. The H2, not so much. But the thing was big. Canyon Arrow. So the point I'm trying to make here is there's two things you can do. One is you can attempt to change the rules. Barring that or skipping that, you can also litigate this. And are you going to get a judge who's going to look at this and go, well, or is he going to say, well, the rules say what the rules say? And that's always the risk. And I have seen judges in my 31 years of practice here in Michigan who've looked at a contract and said, well, that's what it says. And despite that, come out with some absurd outcome that nobody would have expected to be upheld by a court. And the courts tend to look at that sometimes, though, and say, well, you got two parties who signed an agreement. And here we are 27 years later, and you're asking me to change the agreement that one of you doesn't like anymore. But you signed it 27 years ago. So, again, I feel for the guy. I do. But I'm just not sure it's going to happen. And that's unfortunate. Because if you drop $100,000 on a truck, you'd think you can park it outside without annoying the neighbors. But it's not necessarily the neighbors so much as it is the Weston Hills Country Club that wants the homeowner's $100,000 pickup truck out of sight. From local10.com, WPLG. Scott and Brian both sent it. We'll see what happens. Questions or comments, put them below. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. The meek shall inherit the earth. If that's okay with everyone.